was going to say I'm afraid Jane bites, but that might not be bad.
Here you go.
Welcome to another spot interview of NeverEndingPanel.com. We have with us today Jane Fancher, author of the double trilogies, originally called Groundties, now called Netwalkers, and also Dance of the Rings. We want to ask Jane what she's working on, maybe give us a little background on those trilogies. Also to ask, and I guess it'll be towards the end, you do fantasy and science fiction, which is interesting. Most people pick one genre. So let's start with a little bit about those trilogies, and then we'll go into some of the other stuff.
Groundties is a hard science fiction, and it is, actually it's easier to say they're all very heavily character-based.
Got it.
And Groundties is hard science fiction based on a computer network. This is before I'd ever been on the internet. A computer network that is universally accessible, so that communication is instantaneous. And the
Skype for everyone.
Yeah. What I didn't realize when I started it was that I didn't need to work so hard to make it vulnerable. I gave it. Yeah, I did not realize.
That for you.
That's right. I did not realize just how unstoppable information was and how rapidly it got confused on the internet at the time that I started it. But I made it so that the information couldn't be changed, because it's basically one database in space. Cloud computing that is accessible from every point in the universe. So you put information on it, and anybody anywhere can read it.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Carolyn.
Yeah, Sharon, call
Call back. Is there an emergency?
All right. So where were we?
Back to the universally accessible database. What I did was I made it so that the information on it couldn't be changed, and therefore you have to be very careful that it's accurate in the first place, or you have addendums after addendums after addendums. And that is the underlying structure of the universe, and the information starts to go haywire. Stuff starts to change on it, and they don't know why. And our hero is sent out to investigate a paper done by a creative genius who has ensconced himself on an outer-world planet. And it's structured around, there's an underlying current of bigotry between the spacers and the ethnic reconstructionists. But there's also, the real gist of it boils down to educational systems.
Got it.
And I am dealing with educational systems that are too good at turning out cookie-cutter people.
Got it.
And Stephen is one that breaks the mold, so is Wesley, and they come together, and all hell is going to break loose. Woohoo! And
no yeast makes for a dull loaf of bread.
It makes for a very flat loaf of bread.
Gotcha.
So that's that one. The Netwalkers, the reissue of it, Netwalkers, I have written a prequel to my original series, the pre-Stephen years for Wesley.
What's the prequel called?
And the prequel is called Netwalkers.
Okay.
And that's the one that will be appearing on closecircle.net.
Which we'll ask about shortly.
Which is very
And it is Wesley's years at the Academy that sets up the entire story. It was my first book. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I'm very proud of it. The first trilogy, the first 3 books. And I went back and wrote a prequel, and after I was done writing the prequel, which ended up being the best book I've ever written, and really did not change those subsequent books, other than to give us additional information about Wesley's motivations, Carolyn, C.J. Cherry, was the one to tell me at that point, after this book was done, she never would have dared try it. Because it's such a complex series that to go in and do something earlier that I hadn't even worked out before that. I had never thought about it. I just wanted something to build into it.
Heard that a lot of authors say the most difficult writing they do is when they revisit something, because unlike writing the clean slate, you've got to be so careful where you insert the new plot lines.
Absolutely, because any small change that you do, this takes place 10 years before the Groundties series. And if you change anything in that little, the smallest change, I mean, it's sort of like writing your own alternate history type thing,
Right.
and you change one little thing, and it's going to change everything down here.
Next thing you know, it's a Doctor Who episode.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Or
right.
Star Trek.
Right.
Doctor Who. But I was able to pull it off, and it set up some really interesting things that I had no idea had happened, and gave so much more depth to the actions within the subsequent trilogy. Now, the original trilogy I had to really truncate because they came out from Warner in the early 90s and they were too long. So I really truncated them and everything.
So this is really a redo of the
The
entire,
entire
series, including
series.
adding a prequel.
I've added a
Got
prequel, and then I went in and I completely rewrote. There's Groundties, for instance, has gone from 130,000 words to 165,000 words,
Got
and none of them are extraneous, I promise you.
So this is sort of your Blade Runner, the director's cut version.
That's right.
There you
You've
go.
got it. I've got the director's cut for all of those.
Excellent.
So those are 4 of the new ones that will be available on closedcircle.net.